Welcome to the MoRo Talk Show, and I'm here with past President David Boring. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me, President Ryan.
Yes, how are you?
I am very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. All right, let's get right into it. David, how long have you been in Rotary, and who is your sponsor?
I joined in, I believe, May of 2000, and my sponsor was Ken McCall.
Okay, nice. And what caused you to stay in Rotary? And why I ask you that is I think we as presidents are always, we're concerned with membership. Mm-hmm. And, a fair amount of people join every year, but man, it's those people that stay. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of that in many different things, but it's something I'm asking every person that I have on the MoRo Talk Show. What caused you to stay in Rotary?
It's probably a combination of things, but I think the things that I've liked the most about the club that just make it a no-brainer when it's time to re-enlist, whatever you'd like to call it, is that you create these lasting friendships. You really don't want to not be able to see those people on a regular basis. It's just that. That became almost one of the first things. It's like, wow, there's some really cool people in this club. And I was a younger man at that time, and I really enjoyed, some of the old guard that was ahead of me. I really had a lot of respect for some of those people, and all of them really. And it was an incredible feel just coming there all the time. And then, of course, as you see more and more what Rotary does in the community, how we're so committed to everything that's community. Again, it's another thing that's just kind of hard to want to. Why would you want to miss it? That sort of became my thing. And funny story, when I was first in the club, I used to actually be one of those silly ones that would come right before the bell rang, and a lot of times leave before the speaker came on. And one day I was just like doing one of those gut checks, and you go, why would you not stay here and enjoy the fellowship on both sides of that bell? That sort of turned the light on for me. It's like, yeah, it's not just something I should do to be good, give back to my community or to network or whatever reasons people get involved. It was more like, I'm missing the whole point of this. And once I started like doing that, I was sold. I've loved it ever since.
Yeah. I think that, COVID took that away from us, and there's a lot of things that COVID took away, right? But that sense of fellowship, and I think you and I have talked, like, I'm an introvert, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but I find that I get energized by these meetings. And, talking beforehand, just while you're president, popping out and saying hi to everybody that you can, and afterwards, and it's a good energy, and and I think it has to do with a lot with the people that are in that room. Mm-hmm. So I get that, and I remember when. So my first president was President Ross Lee, and then it was Lynn Dickerson, who was my sponsor. And something that Lynn said once from the podium, she said, just put it on your calendar and come. And she was right. And at that time, I was going, I think, to most of them, I'd miss it, but like, I have a busy day, so I can't make Rotary. And then I thought, well, if I treat it like I would treat any other appointment, like with a client, and just don't book anything during that time, then I'll get more plugged in. And it was true. I just got way more plugged in and challenging myself to just try to not miss a meeting. And coming before, staying a little bit afterwards. And so I get what you're talking about.
Sage advice.
Yeah.
When she's done at the gallows, she probably needs to write a book.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole bunch of us that quote her to this day. She just says something and you go, that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So, but I can imagine that's been a hard year for you, because you and I have talked again that we're both kind of introverts, and so I feed off of other people. I just don't want to just go and be in front of a camera. It doesn't. Right. It's not my thing. But the room, of course, makes you just feel like you got people smiling at you. They're there to also energize each other. They're all doing the same thing we're doing as president. But there's something about feeding off that's coming in the room that I think is just priceless.
Yeah, and I was happy to, when we were Zoom only, perform, quote unquote, for the camera lens and all that stuff, and just happy to keep the meeting going. But it was wearing on me in a weird way, like not like, oh, I'm burdened, but I just wanted to get back. And then especially, when we went back in September and October, November, and then to have to roll back because of the stay-at-home order, then it was pretty frustrating, because I just wanted, you get that immediate feedback in the room of the communication loop.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I was just telling our incoming president, Sue Rich, today that you get to be president when the time picks you. You don't always pick the time. And so for our club to have a professional actor, even though it's not the way you'd choose it, you've been able to make those meetings more lively because you understand, okay, I don't have a room to feed off of, so now how do I do it? And I think we've all enjoyed the fact that that acting experience, that acting background, the amount of hours you've put into that craft have come out in Rotary. So that's been good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you make a good point there, and you brought this up as a toast to past President Phil, saying, where did he know to get us a bigger screen? And while it was important at that time, it's been so much more important now that we're having people Zoom in and speakers Zoom in and all those things to an in-person meeting, right? So where does that, there's providence in there somewhere.
Has to be.
Yeah, and then, me and I have a media company, and we're able to elevate the Zoom experience, and it's just like, well, it's great timing, but it also, I think there's a bigger hand in that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And you feel it even in today's toast for Brad. I mean, Brad's year didn't have the events of COVID around it, but it certainly had a year, as we discussed today and as was applauded in the club, that he was the year that we decided to get rid of the lunch, the lunch cost, and that feeling like, oh, you're going to pay if you miss. And a lot of the members that we lost during that time, we've been able to bring some of them back. We need to bring more back. But I mean, it's a brave move. You're looking at a budget cut, and you're looking at this and that. And Brad was the guy that was just like, if you know Brad, it's like, well, we'll figure it out. And I can tell you, being right before him, I don't know if I would have had that same like, oh, we'll just figure it out. I'm not quite wired that way. I'm a little more like, I want to plan and I want to know for sure.
Right.
And Brad, that's how Brad rolls, and that was the providence of Brad's year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
I like it too. And what Dave was referring to is we toasted past President Brad today at our meeting. He was named the Modesto Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year. And it's mainly for the work that he has done on J Street, building the parklets. But I just wanted to make sure people knew that, in everything Brad does, he's a great person. And, the people, I'm new to Modesto, so everybody knows that, right? But for me, it's just like, and he's quiet. He's a quiet guy, and of course, when he came up and he said some nice things, but he immediately gave credit to everybody else, because that's what Brad is, right? That's what Brad does. But man, like I said in the meeting, he's out there building these parklets. And I'm sure there's many other people that are making it happen, right? But he's doing it, And that's the thing with the attendance fines is, like you just mentioned, I'd heard it, man, going back to Ross's year, like, we really need to get rid of these. At some point, we'll have to get rid of these. It's a directive from Rotary International to get rid of these. But, he's the one who did it. And that's not a criticism of any president that came before him. It's just, he did it, and that's good.
Yeah, stepped up to the plate at the exact right time in the lineup.
Yeah, because I know, if it had waited to my year, we couldn't do it now because, of the budget. So it was good that he did it. I also think there's a kind of a natural, and I think this is done maybe unconsciously by the committee. He's pretty low key. He's actually really funny.
Of course.
Yeah, and I don't think people get that right away, but he's a very funny man. But he's low key. So, I think we have these, you're showman, right? And then we have a low key president kind of after that, and then I think Phil's more on the low key side, and I'm getting back to the showman side. So I think it's a good balance there too for the club. And, you know, people have said to me, past presidents, well, gosh, you got robbed and all this kind of stuff. And I really haven't felt that way. I really haven't. But I do feel bad. I feel bad for past President Phil, because he was really on par to have a great, strong year, especially with membership. And he was just finishing really strong. And, you know, to have that kind of just yanked away from him was tough to see.
Agreed, it was the home stretch.
Yeah, it was the home stretch.
It's like when you watch an Indy race and you see somebody that's been leading for that long, and it's eventful, and then all of a sudden the car has to pull off and it can't finish the race the way he wanted to. God gets back on the track, but and again, I will say this about Phil, his sense of decorum. I think we all feel that empathy that you're talking about, but his sense of decorum made us all feel like it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Never felt like, this is really bad and this is really tragic. It was just like, it's okay. We're going to get through this good. And so, but I'm with you. Like, you know, he was the perfect president for the 100th year, and I kind of wish the timing had changed up a little bit. Wouldn't wish it on anybody else. Back to your thing though, during your year, this is going to be a memorable year. Phil's is going to be a memorable year.
Right.
That's going to be part of it, is that you go back and you look. You know, I've been in the club for 21 years now, and there's memorable years, and you remember them based on that some things just changed or went different, or that president added something new, and now we've got the outside world that's really changed and changed the dynamic. So I think that's going to stand the test of time, I think, for both you and Phil.
Yeah.
And maybe a little for Sue.
Yeah.
We'll see.
True. Good point. Very good point. You know, that kind of leads me when you're talking about Phil. This point, so we're in, gosh, what month is April? When I think it's after the Christmas break, because we usually take a couple months off at Christmas. There is a sense, because I saw it on presidents, I saw it on you, that there's just a little bit of a euphoria with that when you come back after that break. Mm-hmm. And what do you think that is? Because I have an idea as it hit me, but what do you think that is?
Got a really good Christmas present that you know. No, you know what I think it really is that, you know, everybody knows that that's the halfway point. Mm-hmm. You know, when you get the job, you know that, you know, you've got it from July to end of June. And that feels like a halfway point. It's 2 weeks off without a meeting, which is a good break, because most of us don't really want to miss a meeting. It's like, I don't want to take a bunch of vacations while I'm going to do that job. I'd like to do that job, you know, because it's going to be the one and only time I get to do it. And so I think it's a few things. One is that I think all of us go in with a lot of apprehension, and you're worried about how it's going to go. And you know, we're all probably the most self-critical of everything that we ever did up there, did or didn't do. And you get to that halfway point and you realize, okay, well, they haven't kicked me out. They're still coming. And I'm not as nervous as I was. And I think it's all those things that just make you feel like this feels like a home stretch now. I think it's almost like when a team gels in sports and you just see that now they're not thinking about it as much. They're just doing. They go out in the court. I'm using basketball because it's the season, but they go out in the court and now they're doing it. It's not practice. It's not as much. You feel that way. You're in a rhythm. That's my take. How about you?
I agree with all of that, and I think you just hit on a really good point. It is a rhythm by that point, you know, and I was very self-critical of myself. I hope I'm not spilling any beans. Because you and I had conversations when you were president, yep. And you were self-critical.
Oh, I was crying to you.
Yeah, well, not literally, but and
almost.
I was crying to you, and I think almost, right? Because we're both in this business, right?
Right.
And we know, you know, if something looks bad or whatever, we're taking that cut personally. I think it's also a sense of, you know, I like what you say, hey, they haven't removed me, which is good. They haven't removed me either. But it's like, I can't break this. You know, the club
Right.
The club is, it's unbreakable. It's going to survive. It's so big and so well run by the committee chairs and the membership, and Kathy and Janine before, who are just backbones in the office, that, you know, not that we'd ever try, but you can't screw it up. Like, it's, the club exists beyond you, you know? And so I think that you probably, with that 2-week break, you kind of unconsciously come to that realization too. Like, okay, you know, I'm more relaxed, everything's going well, you know, no one's screwed up in a major way, and it's going to be okay.
That's a really good observation.
Yeah.
I hadn't quite, I probably have thought about that before, but not necessarily in this context. Like, yeah, how could you break it?
Right.
I mean, you know, you got to watch the language, but
Right.
you know, there's some things, but literally, I think the way the club works, there's so many people in that club that are so committed to what they do, and they're so good at engaging other people in it. Talking to Brad earlier, but you know, today again, same meeting, we see Kate Donovan, you know, plotting other people that she just, you know, here's an idea, we need to do something in a COVID year to make this fundraiser work. What do you want to do? And she's put on some great fundraisers, but she just stepped back and let other people, and they didn't let her down, and they're not going to let the club down. And
Right.
so you look at that and you just say, that's autopilot. That's the kind of thing that, you're right, when you're up there, you realize that stuff's always going to continue. So,
Very much
yeah.
so.
And we're a really active club, and we get things done, so that helps too. So.
Yeah. I've talked about this before. I don't know if we've talked about it. The blessing and the curse of the meeting every week is there's a meeting every week, but you can never get mired on a bad meeting, because in 2 weeks you've pretty much forgotten about it because you've got another meeting. So it is a good thing or a bad thing?
It's both. It's both, because you're always going to remember the things you didn't do right. Especially if you're a self-critical person, it's just one of those things that happens. I think you have this sense of, man, I could have done that differently, or man, I really bungled that day. And so that, I remember those things. I shouldn't, but I do. But you are right that you get a do-over, and that do-over is kind of sweet, because whatever you didn't do last week, you know, or missed or didn't do as well, and I don't know. And then I can tell you, I saw how other presidents did that. I watched presidents before me, obviously, as you have, and you sort of see how they handle things from week to week, you know. And it takes a lot. Some people have had some things before us that you go, man, I wouldn't want that. And then you see them recover really well, and you go, okay, that's cool. They just did it. But it's because they get that do-over.
Yeah.
It's none of them is, you know, none of them are the final. And I think that's why the final is not your meeting. So you don't have to worry about messing it up.
Right.
Let them mess it up if they're going to, but not you.
Right, yeah. Well, so speaking of that, you have, since I've been a member, you probably have the best kickout.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to you, Pete, Colby,
Yeah.
Kenny, Lou, Amy. Boy, that was quite a spectacular and kind of a genius, taking the theme of me wanting to introduce the club to music in my awkward way, but using that as a platform to do it, inviting other clubs so you could have some fun with them, having it be like an award show, and then having these entertainers come on. And yeah, your impersonation was spot on. I still almost can't watch Colby's thing, you know, without getting a little choked up.
Yeah.
It's like that really came across as heartfelt. And
Yeah.
so, and you know, it's funny. The funny thing is, people come up to you afterward and like, this is the best kick out ever. Like I had something to do with it. Like really?
Right.
I just sat in a chair. They gave me a stick horse. They put a poncho on me. They gave me a hat. They gave me a cigar. I had nothing to do with this. You got to go.
Right.
You got to run and go thank Pete and Ryan and Colby, and because they did it. I just got lucky that was the year that all that talent came together and made it so memorable.
Right.
So,
I have to thank Past President Pete a lot. And this was not served up on a platter to you to bounce it back to me, but it was Pete. Pete had the general idea, the general framework. He had originally had an idea about doing It's a Wonderful Life, to the point of where I even did like an outline sketch of a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And he had tapped me early on. He wanted me to be a part of it, which I was happy to do. And then he called me, and within a couple weeks he said, "No, I've got a way better idea." And I thought, "Oh, here we go." And I don't like it when people change plans or whatever when they've given me a direction. But he was right. And I saw that right away. Like, he's like, "No, we should make it more like a Grammy Awards thing, and it just ties into his love of music, and it'll be way more memorable." And it was, he was absolutely right. And I saw that right away, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is a way better idea." And so I had that ability to write for that. And then what I will say too is he put together a really good committee behind the scenes. So the committee, when we sat down to discuss the script as a committee, they liked it. And so any of their ideas were, how can we make this even better? Which is always good. So there was nobody on there that said, "No, I don't like this, so I'm going to tear it apart," And then it was just like a really good, like, who can we get to play Sonny and Cher? And a couple names were thrown out. And then it was Kenny and Lou, and we thought, oh, great. And then I think it was me, or it could have been someone else, that said, "But wait a minute, let's make Lou Cher and Kenny Sonny." And that there was no laughter in the room, because we all thought, oh, that's going to be really good. It was like beyond laughter. Like, we just knew that was going to be great.
Wait for it.
Yeah. And then, Amy Vickery came in, and she was just a great Tina Turner, and she had fun with it, And I mean, all those people did. And then, I think I've told you this, Colby, that was all him. So we had just said, "Hey, can we do Desperado?" And I just said, with the syllables, it's David Boring. It lines up. And everything was him. So we wrote it together, but it was really all him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Chords on that song aren't even easy.
No, they're not. No, it's in a weird key. And
I don't know if anybody knows that. It's not like
Right.
playing a little 3-chord song. It's like,
Right.
How do I move my fingers on the fretboard to get this right? So,
Yeah.
And then doing Don Henley, I think that's a little bit of a task too. But he stepped up.
He did.
So and I had family there. Most of us, that's the tradition, and all of us. And I think that they just thought the whole thing was almost like a dream sequence. Like, how does this even happen?
Yeah.
Like, they're doing this for Granddad, and they're doing this, for my dad. And it's kind of fun. We filmed it so my son Grant, who used to be a member in the club, could see it.
Right.
And that was great because he couldn't be there, but he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was what a wonderful way to feel like you paid your dues, but you're also in a group that wants to thank you in such a fun way. Mm-hmm. And you don't mind being made fun of. It's sort of like par for the course. And I was glad there were some of those, and I really appreciated the whole thing. It came off really well.
Yeah. It was, Pete got us into the Arbor Theater, which was more theatrical.
Right.
We had Kevin doing the AV and more of a, lighting and all that kind of stuff, which is more theatrical. That's all due to Pete's leadership and making sure that happened. And then, we also said too, with your sons, like, we're not going to touch these. We're going to let these be heartfelt. And we wanted the people that were doing those things to be, that was going to be genuine. We're not going to poke fun at you there. But, this was also a return to poking fun, which hadn't been at the last couple of kickouts. And so, because we knew you could take it, and we also knew we weren't going to go over the line.
Right.
And that was a directive from the get-go. But nobody wanted to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So.
No, there were like 2 or 3 things that if you guys had made fun of, I knew that I would have walked out. The feral cowlicks, that thing. Sometimes the shirts aren't long enough. The tucking in constantly. It's just things. But
Sure.
But overall, no. It was easy to feel like, oh, they're making fun of the right stuff, and never felt like any lines were crossed. Do I have my stories right in that Pete came up with that revisionist idea of what it should be? It was like a shower moment.
It could be.
I think
I think he's right.
he said, yeah, it's like a JR moment, just to
Yeah.
bring it back to, not JR, but
Bobby.
Bobby
Yeah.
Ewing.
Bobby
Yes,
Ewing,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Why would I even try trivia with you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, let's not make the mistake again.
I will not.
Dallas trivia.
Yeah,
That it is.
we'll deal with that in post, right, John?
Right, John? This one may be a little bit out of left field. Is there anything that you wished, I'm going to give it to you both ways, you either paid more attention to as president or less attention to while you were president?
I'm not sure if I understand them more or less, but
Like, gosh, I wish I would have done this or paid more attention to this aspect of the club, of Rotary in general, of the meeting, or like, gosh, I really lost sleep over X, Y, and Z, and I really shouldn't have because, it was fine.
it's a good question. I think the funny thing is the thing I think sometimes you're planning out what you think your meetings are going to look like. And everybody knows, good or bad or ugly, that I loved the music trivia aspect of it. I did it all wrong. I didn't figure that out until after my year was done.
Okay.
I think it was like 2/3 the way through Brad's year. I'm like, oh, I didn't do that right at all. What was I thinking? It was weird.
So what would you have done?
I would have played, because my favorite thing is if you were to come over tonight and we were going to just share a beverage and have some snacks and like, hey, I want to play some music, Ryan. Put on some music for you, and then hopefully that prompts you to go, hey, that makes me want you to hear this, and why don't you? To me, the music is sharing it. I love the sharing of it. To turn it into a trivia thing, I missed the mark. Actually, it should have been play a minute of it so everybody hears it. So I'm sharing it, and then ask, who do you think it is? And the people that would be interested would have at least heard it. I think people would have had an easier time. There would have been somebody probably in the room that would have known who it was, because I wasn't trying to go too trivial, too far out there. I mean, a few of them I made it hard, but I really didn't want to make them like these are all going to be difficult. So that was one that actually, it's like way since I was president, I looked at it and said, no, I should have just played a little bit of it. Like, you hear, there's a lead singer of a band, Keane, that has since sometimes gone out and done a show or two with Queen.
Okay.
And there's no doubt that guy has a voice that's like Freddie Mercury. And I did a Keane trivia thing, but nobody heard it. Because you turn the music on when the meeting's over, everybody's visiting like they should be.
Right.
So I sort of like, that was like a big no-no. And I didn't even realize it until after, but what are you going to do? The thing I wish I had done more of, I think our club, I don't think it's a big secret, our club, it's always been interested to make sure that we're engaging to all segments of our population. And that means that, we want people that come from different backgrounds. We want people that come that don't necessarily look like us and not come from our background, and obviously different ages and different. And so one of the things we love about the club. But during that cusp of when I was coming in and while Pete was finishing, there was a lot of conversation about, well, let's make sure we're engaging our young members and see what they want. And so you're sitting there figuring out when you're president, how do I do that? What does that look like? And I think I can say it now. People that were closest to me knew what I was doing. But one of the reasons I started the MoRo trips is I wanted to make some of them stars. It's like I had a few. I knew if I had Kenny first, it'd be pretty hard for people to go, well, I don't want to do that. But Kenny did it and made it fun. So then you go, okay. So I looked at some of the other people, and that was part of the fun of it, was some of those people that I think maybe felt like, I'm blending in here too much, and this club's a lot of people that look like your age, David. And so I thought, if I can just get them out in the car and do that. And so I wish I could have done more of that. Again, how much can you fit in a year? But I liked getting them out and seeing their sense of humor and their observations. And that was a lot of fun, because it checked one of the things off my list of like, let's engage them more. but it's hard to do it in a meeting too much. I mean, there's just like, how do you can't like just pick out certain people by age and do too much. I mean, I think it's a tricky thing to do as a president, to figure out like, how do I do that? So that was one of the things that I actually did feel like I liked it. I just wish I could have done more. I just didn't have enough time to get them all in.
Right.
So
I loved Ryan's, where he was doing it and he was playing the millennial. He was drinking kombucha, and just everything he was doing was hilarious. And, of course, we all loved the one with Kenny because it kicked it off, and she was obviously playing with it and the whole tattoo parlor thing. And they were good. I enjoyed them. And
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I could see, when you were taking those younger members, that I think I could, although maybe I didn't directly see it, now I obviously understand it more.
it was kind of fun.
But yeah, well, they were all fun, but it was a way to engage.
But I think it was kind of fun in a way that nobody would have expected, like Ryan doing the millennial thing. I certainly didn't have much play on how funny that was. That was all Ryan.
Yeah.
So,
And he had a fidget spinner.
He's got a fidget spinner. He's giving it to me.
Right.
Kombucha. And then the funny part is like he put all the stuff in his bag. He didn't tell me he was going to do any of it. He's just saying, here we go. You got any coconut water up in here?
That's right.
No, I don't have any. And he pulls the coconut out of his
course.
backpack. But the drill, I almost lost it. I'm just like, how do you even think of this stuff? And then the unplanned stuff. You got James, you got Dave Darmsettler and Ian Grimmelby inside of preservation. We're walking in, they're talking to us, and we're saying, like, you need to come to the meetings. And what had happened in the car already is Ryan already said something about avocado toast, and we already made some in the car. So we were already, avocado toast was one of those things that was part of the bit. And then we say to them, like, well, Dave, you should be coming to the club. And we think Ian's going to jump in. And Dave goes, that's avocado toast day. And I'm like, seriously? Because we didn't plan that.
Right.
So I loved that, too, just like the things that you couldn't plan. And those guys were fun to do it with. I mean, you just didn't matter who it was that was going to go out and get in an adventure with. It was just, Jeff Burrow. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Talk about good dry wit and fun sense of humor.
Yeah.
He was, but again, that was one of the most fun things I got to do, was just get out with them and see their energy and see their enthusiasm for having fun with it. And they loved Rotary. But it was nice to do things with them. It was great.
And then you had an unlikely muse, Larry Dempsey, who seemed to, in a little way, figure into a lot of things you did. And why is that? I like Larry, but why is that? He's an unlikely muse, let's just say that. He's
Well,
a
I
good
can
guy.
tell you one of the reasons he's done it with me, there's a direct link. Back in the day when my son Grant was in the club, he was a pretty young member, but he was really active. He was part of the AV committee, and he shot the 90th anniversary film that we did for when we reached that milestone. And Larry came in and worked with him a lot, and they hit it off real well. But Larry, once he gets to know you, then he's looking for he likes to get the little.
Sure.
And so it started when we were doing one several of us presidents in a row were trying to get people to wear their Rotary pins more in public, just start the conversation. And so we have a meeting, we're staging a meeting. Well, we're doing it right before the meeting, but Larry's, working the door, and he's coming into the door, and he's not allowed to come in this video because he's not wearing his pin. And it wasn't like, we're going to give you a prize, which was what we would always do when we with the pins. He literally, just off the cuff, did this whole bit that nobody planned or anything, being really upset, going to his car, trying to find a pin, knocking the camera down, and it sort of became like, this is his shtick. I mean, we're going to be doing this again.
Right. Yeah.
Because Larry's Larry. And once you know he can do that, and so I think that year it just sort of turned into, that's a nice thing to know about Larry. And so, of course, we had to have him do that. We had to have him be arrested. You got to get Larry in those things.
Right. Yeah, and that's good. It's a good credit to him too that he's playing along with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well, we talked earlier about presidents following presidents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a very interesting thing because you can get, like you said, maybe a showman and maybe somebody that's more reserved.
Right.
And Larry, to his credit, but a challenge, had to follow Marion Martino.
Mm-hmm.
And Marion Martino was as off the cuff and quick-witted as you can get. And everybody knew that in her year. And she was fun because some things would sometimes come out of her mouth that she wasn't really worrying about. And the club was kind of enjoying the fact that she wasn't. And so it was a grand year, and everybody's like, I feel sorry for Larry. I feel sorry for Larry. It's like, Larry's going to be fine because Larry's got this dry wit, and it's a little different, and he's got a different way about him, and it hits. I liked his year, but he does have that little side that likes to act like he's a little perturbed about things and put off.
Well, I like Larry, but sometimes it may be not an act. Sometimes.
Well, maybe it's just that he plays off of that.
That's true.
That's who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for you if you sort of have a little bit of that view, like, I can be a little bit critical of things. And I think he'd admit that.
Yeah, I think he would too.
But then he likes to have fun with it.
Yeah, he does, which is good, and that's his credit.
Because
I
if
like
you
Larry
couldn't,
a lot. Oh yeah, it'd be a way different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like Simon Cowell all of a sudden, like, not being able to take a joke. It's like, well, that's not very good because.
Right.
Or criticism, like,
Right.
you do it really well. I mean, you've got to be able to take
Right.
it. So.
Yeah, and one thing I've missed, that got shut off at COVID was the history committee or whatever that is, where we get a book and he and Curtis co-lead it. It's usually done at Larry's house, and I've missed that. I missed that interaction with them.
Yeah.
So. Did you have a sense of how much work this job is?
I did partially because my mentor was Pete.
Yeah. And let's make it clear, because you're going to agree with me on this. Not in a bitching way and not in a complaining way, but Pete was just like, hey, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
He's like, you're basically a CEO of this club for a year.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that was
That's the exact
phrase.
quote I got. And you hear
Right.
that, and you can't unhear that.
No.
Like, oh yeah, I guess I'm going to just treat it like a temp job, and I'm just going to show up.
Right.
No.
No.
When Pete Herman tells you,
Right.
who is an organizational guru,
Yeah.
tells you this is what it is,
Right.
and diagrams it all out for you like Newt Rockney. Like
Right.
diagrams it all. I mean,
Yeah, on the
all these-
whiteboard.
Yes,
Yeah.
or literally on whatever paper we have
Right.
in front of us at the boardroom.
Right.
But we're doing it.
Yeah.
And he's drawn it all out, and I'm trying to follow him because Pete likes to see and understand things. This is
Right.
what I love about the man.
Oh, yeah.
Is how he tries to break things down and figure it out, and then be able to communicate it and make it easier for people to comprehend, because he did all that hard work. So
Right.
he's sitting there looking you in the eye going, you're going to loan the club a CEO for the year.
Right.
And I said, I told him, like, I'm the janitor at my company, so this is a bit of a stretch.
Right.
Like, I haven't done that job. But no, even with that warning,
Yeah.
even with that really good advice,
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah.
And you get in and you just go, wow, he's right. I mean, I kept thinking that all year long. He was right. And you don't want to phone it in.
No.
Every
if you
com-
care, you don't want to vote it
Yeah,
in, which
but-
you do and I do.
But I mean, every committee.
Pete does.
Yes, but he made that clear. Like, every committee matters.
Yeah.
Every committee, how it's going. What are you doing to help them? Every project that we have, every fundraiser that we have, every meeting, every guest. I mean, just the whole thing. You realize, like, this is kind of you. You have to make sure this stuff happens. And like you said, the club will take care of a lot of it. It's not like you gotta stay up the night before and not sleep over it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember feeling like once I was doing it, like, wow, he's right. I'm working 2 jobs right now. And it was like, did you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You felt that way?
Oh, yeah. Yep. But, I was expecting it. Of course, I've had another layer, and I'm not complaining. I'm not doing all that. I want to be very clear. There's a whole other layer of complexity because of COVID and doing the Zoom meetings and all that stuff. But it's it's a lot, but you do care, like you said. So you don't want to phone it in because these members, they'll know that,
Right,
and so you don't want to disappoint them,
right.
and that's why you care, and that's why Pete cares, and all the presidents, and you and me, and because it's like, man, they would know, they just would, if you didn't care or you're phoning it in or what have you. And so I think that plays in the back of your mind because these are not dumb people. So it's like, man, they're going to know.
They're going to know.
Yeah.
And when we're back to the previous question you asked about what you wish you could have done more of or less of, one of the things that I often wish I could have done better was more the ad lib. I love playing off of people.
Right.
But up there, I kind of froze a little bit. Like I do a
Sure.
little bit of it, but I was like, I don't know if I have that quick enough edit filter
Yeah.
that can go, no, you can't go that far with it.
Right.
And yeah, I'll find it funny, and I got some friends out here that I know will think it's funny, but
Right.
then the ones that won't. And I think that's part of it too. And so I felt like I kind of held back a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know. Do you ever feel like you?
Yeah.
Because you got a big sense of humor, but do
Right.
you ever feel like, oh man, I have to rein it in a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Right.
Yeah, and that's for the betterment of the club. I mean, obviously, that's why we did it. We would do it.
Right.
It's not because it's censorship. It's because
No.
it's sensitivity.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think that's the key. But like, if I could be Curtis Grant
Oh, yeah.
and just throw it right back at somebody,
Or Mary Martino.
yes, throw
Another
it right
pro,
at
yeah.
you, and you're just like, oh, I
Right.
didn't realize I was supposed to have a glove up, and I didn't realize I'm supposed to throw it back at you.
Right.
I mean, those guys were masters at it, both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both. I mean, she was. Well, my first year coming into the club was Curtis Gratis president.
Ah, wow.
So I thought, oh, this is what Rotary is.
Yeah,
I
so-
came in halfway during his year. This is what Rotary is.
Right.
And again, we're talking showman to who follows him is Royal Robbins, who is absolutely one of the most esteemed members of our community, in terms of his legacy and, the imprint he left here and the business he started and ran. And very stoic,
Yeah.
just a really classy guy. But he had to follow Curtis.
Right.
And that's the year I realized, like, oh, this is going to change every year.
Yeah. And their whole personality of the club will change.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. I just wish I
Right.
could have had a ride during Bob Cardoza's time. I have always heard that Bob Cardoza was like the gold standard. Like,
Okay.
Bob could work the room. Bob could just throw things back and forth at you all day long. And I don't know, but someone's got to have some footage somewhere.
I don't know.
There's got to be some private stock footage
Yeah.
here of somebody's
Somebody-
got a private stock of it. But yeah, I always heard he was hilarious. Anyway, sorry.
Speaking of the room, you and I have talked about this, the Napa room.
Yeah,
So, and you had the unfortunate choice or luck or whatever you want to say of being in there probably more than the rest of us had. So I've only been in there once. Now, when you're in the audience in the Napa room, it doesn't feel too bad because you're kind of cozy. You're kind of, it's cramped, but you feel like cozy. You feel maybe, oh, this is more intimate. But when you're president, it stinks because you have to have walleye vision, which none of us have. It's tough enough to try to keep an eye on that room in the regular ballroom. But in the Napa room, it's like they're way out to your sides, which I didn't even get until I was up there. And it's hard. That room is hard to do it. So what are your thoughts on that besides it stunk?
well, we got put in there a lot in my
Right.
year. I don't know why. It might have been punishment. Maybe the
No.
DoubleTree was, not liking how I was doing the meetings.
Were you eating more than your cookie allotment, David?
I was.
Okay.
Actually, I wasn't that year. This year, I'm sort of starting to again. I'm eyeballing who left them.
Right.
It's a race between Curtis and I. The room was a really interesting room. I think it'd be an ideal room. You and I both love to play guitar, and be an ideal room to perform in.
Yeah.
It'd be intimate. You could turn and look at this side of the room, and you could, and I love theaters like that. These long, long halls that you go see bands playing, sometimes old movie theaters or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't have that same feel of like something that's shallow and comes all the way and surrounds it. And I love
Right.
watching music that way. Or performances, live performances, same thing. Whether it's acting or Broadway stuff or whatever, just seeing it in a smaller scale like that. But to work it as basically like you are kind of the MC of the meeting, it is a tricky thing because you don't know where the next person on mic is going to come from, and you're trying to figure it out. It's not easy. You don't have the full scope of the room. Who's talking now? Wait, what's going on? Yeah.
Well, and the thing too is the audience sees them before you do.
Yes.
They're like, hey, John Q is trying to get your attention. It's like, well, I don't have eyes on the side of my head, so hold on.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Yeah. Probably one of our fundraisers we could do this year for you, and maybe for Sue, is get those really big mirrors that they have, in the convenience stores.
Okay.
So
you
can get a full view. So you're just sitting up there
Right.
and you're going, oh shoot, I know who that is. That's Lou Friedman over
Right.
here. I know who that is. That, right?
Yeah. Well, true.
Because everybody does point out to you like, why can't you see this?
Right.
I can't see it because my neck only pivots this much,
Right.
right?
And I have 8,000 things on my mind, and
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and you're following. The one thing that we all find out is you're following a very tight time
Oh yeah.
thing.
Right.
And I think one of the things that most of us presidents like the most is watching when you see a future president watching the time.
Yeah.
You'll see it now next year and forever.
Right.
You see it. You know when this thing's maybe going to affect our time.
Right.
And you and Kathy might be making a little bit of eye contact, and it just says that's that. But that's the other part. That's one of the fun things that happens in that environment is that the time is just very, very tight. And so anything that slows it down, and that room has a way of slowing down a meeting. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it kind of does. Mm-hmm. And I think it's partially because it just doesn't line up right.
A neat thing, though, on that time constraint, and it happened today, we had a really full meeting. So kind of also when to cut somebody off, like move quickly ahead to the next thing. And Kathy and I, before the meeting, we didn't know if I was going to make it, especially I was trying to give a nice toast at the end to Brad Hahn. And then, inviting Brad up. And then I just flat out said it, Brad, we only have 4 minutes, and you know what it's like to be up here. And, he's a good sport, so he kept it short, and it was very nice still. But then it's like when you're so packed and you can do it on time, that's like a sense of accomplishment.
Oh, that's a high five.
Yeah.
That's always a high five. You get to the end
Right.
of it, and poor Kathy, her first year was with me.
Come on now.
Janine did my first meeting.
Okay.
But I'm throwing a lot of audiovisual at her, and
Right.
she
That was not her strong suit, which she will admit.
Yeah,
She'll
and
freely admit that.
she's so funny about it because she thinks that somehow that was a problem. I'm like, we were both up there learning together. I hadn't been president before, and you hadn't been the administrator of our organization. So this is what it is. We're going to just have fun, and we did. We had a lot of fun, and you had to be able to laugh at the moments that didn't go right, and you had to be able to high five when everything fell into place. Like you just go, look at that. We're getting the speaker on right at 1:00.
How does that happen?
Yeah, I know, and I'm watching that too today. Like Brad, he got it.
Yeah, he did. He's a good guy. Two things with Kathy. On this very same line, in the fall, one of the meetings this fall, I was kind of giving an update on all the things we had done because I was trying to just inspire everybody. Like, hey, despite these shutdowns, despite all this stuff, we're doing these great things. And I think it went out a little bit longer than Kathy anticipated. So in the video, which is nice now because every meeting's recorded because of Zoom, right? She's like, you could see her hand come over and it's like tapping the table. And I could see it out of the corner of my eye. And I'm just like, yeah, I know where I'm going. Like, I know how to, wrap this one up. But we laughed about it afterwards. She's like, I didn't know where you're going with this. And another thing too, I thought about this year, we'll say, Kathy's great, can't do without her. We really mean that, and I hope, everybody that I've talked, and Janine before, right, it's very genuine.
Absolutely.
But think about this. Put yourself in Kathy's shoes. You get a new boss every year.
No kidding.
Wouldn't that be something?
It's got to be strange.
Yeah.
Because all of us are wired differently. Our ways that we want things to go, the way we communicate, the way we're all different.
Yep.
And so how do you go from, and we can't all be Pete Herman.
No.
You know?
Right. The guy's a master. You
Just
can't.
saying,
Right.
we can't all be, and I say that with all the admiration in the world for the man.
Oh, yeah.
But no, everybody's different, and I think of that person that's sitting up there. It's a constant. How do you navigate from one year to the next? Because all our personalities are so different, and the things that we might really care about, the next one might not.
Right.
It's like. So that was kind of an interesting. I guess getting each other first. It was kind of a good thing for me in that regard. Not that. Janine didn't occasionally, pull me aside and let me know something, and I actually appreciated that. If she saw something and like, okay, she's got the knowledge of what it's like to sit here,
Right.
so okay, she's gonna, and so those were helpful. But Kathy and I have always referred to as the blind leading the blind, and it's like I don't know what it's like to go from me,
Yeah.
to go to Brad, to go to Phil, to go to you. It's like we're all so different.
Right.
And it's going to be, I think it's always going to be an interesting thing for her.
Yeah. But she does it so well.
Yeah,
I mean, she handles
she's got
it
the
so
temperament.
well.
She's got the temperament
Yeah.
for it.
I wouldn't. Not at all. I'll tell you that right now. You're going to give me a new type A every year that's different from the type A I just had? Then no thanks. No thanks.
How can there be so many different type A's, right?
Right, yeah. I've done. I deal with this type A in the mirror enough, so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now there's a new one. And they got ideas.
Right,
Yeah, like good luck.
right.
But no, she's got the right temperament. And I got the privilege of being on the search committee with Pete to pick
Good.
Janine's successor, which was kind of cool because you're picking who's going to work with you in the next year.
Yeah,
Now, I had to think more long-term than that. I knew I
Sure.
wasn't picking for me, but it was kind of cool knowing I'm going in with all this trepidation. What kind of personality would be kind of cool to work with in that? And Kathy's ability to roll,
right.
I think that was one of those things that I think I was really drawn to. Like, she's going to roll with things. And I may do some things that she'll have to roll with. And she turned out to be all that in a bag of chips. I mean,
Yeah.
really. And so I just can't say enough good about what it was like to be up there with her. I think that's, part of the highlight is like, she's kind of, even though she doesn't get to speak much or do anything like that, it's kind of like your Ed McMahon. It's your security blanket. It's your, like, this can only happen if you're there. And just that advantage of being able to pull in every week and know she's there, she's got your back. She's going to nudge you when you need nudging. She's going to say something.
Gonna tap.
Tap.
Right.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. And, but she's part of the reason I think our club has, and this is again, it's not making a comparison to Janine, because I think Janine's institutional memory was just colossal.
Oh, yeah, it still is.
And we still count on her.
Big time.
So they're different personalities, just like the presidents are different personalities. But I think she's had to adapt really well to, the differences we all have. And I think she's done a great job at it, yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about, hey, this job is a lot of work, and we played our violins to each other, But I also want to make it clear, and I think you would too, for people to do it, because it is a very rewarding job. Sure, it is a lot of work, and you should know that going into it. But I would highly suggest it for any Rotarian in the club, because it is so rewarding. At least it has been to me. Do you have thoughts on that?
I completely agree. You probably do it too, but when you're up there, you actually think of people that should be up there. It's like, and not because you're all knowing, because you're the one that's up there. It's like, now you know what the rhythm is. Now you know what the job is. Now you know what the kind of expectations are. You know what you did well. You know what other people can do better. And you start surveying the room going, who could do this? Who should be up here someday?
Yeah.
And, some of the people that are in the chain right now were kind of easy to see.
Sure.
I mean, I was pushing probably Sue Rich about 2 or 3 years ago. She's just really good in front of a room.
Very funny too.
And, good, quick sense of humor.
Very much so.
And but then you got to convince Sue of that. And
Sure.
it's got to be the right time for Sue. And it's got
Yeah.
to, I don't say this like any of us twisted her arm, because I don't know that a person sits in the room and goes, oh, I'm going to be up there.
Right.
I don't know that you think that. I certainly
No.
didn't when I joined the club. I wasn't, oh, I'm going to be up there.
Right.
But those are people that have been up there. You sort of survey the room and you go, yeah, I got some people that I think would be great up here. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of exciting to see when it happens, because the club, I think, and the past presidents intuitively have a good sense of like, they're going to do okay. They're going to do good. I don't mean okay like that's the bar. I just mean they're going to be good for the club.
Right.
So, yeah, and you probably got 3 or 4 right now on the top of your mind. You're not going to say them?
Nope. But I do.
But you do. Mm-hmm. And, they haven't stepped up yet, but there's going to be a time.
Right. On that same line, I think that some of our younger people that are, when you were thinking of people that could be a good president, and they've got younger kids, and they've got, whatever, and they're like, well, maybe, but not now. It's like, no, do it. Do it, because we need that perspective. We need a younger person. I was slightly younger than, the people that come before me, mm-hmm. But it's like, it brings a new energy into the club. And it would be interesting to have a president up there that's got younger kids. I get it, their life is busy, I'm not saying it's not, but it would be interesting.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Perspective would be different. Probably some of the kinds of things that they would bring to the feeling in the room. Perspective of being from a different generation. I mean, Lynn was joking with us for a while, like we could all been in high school together.
Right.
She, Ross, me, Brad, Pete. And you know what? I did the math. We were all in high school, not at the same high school
Sure.
or same class, but we would have all been in high school at the same time.
Right.
It's like, well, you got to break that up.
Right.
Like, so we needed a person younger like you to break that, because that just kept going, and everybody's done great. It's not like anybody's complaining about it, but I think you're right. The hope is that you find those people that go, okay, I'll do it. I got kids, but I'll do it.
Right.
And it could be a great year because the kids could be a part of it even.
Sure.
I mean, I don't see any reason why kids can't, when Jen Dittman would bring her son, it would always be like a show.
Right.
Like, okay, he's getting a hamburger. Why don't we all get hamburgers?
Right.
It just became this fun thing, but, and I'm not saying Jen should do it, or I'm not nominating anybody. I'm just saying that even kids added to the mix, because almost everybody in that club, they're really family people.
Yeah.
They love their families, whether they've got grown kids, or they have small kids, or they're in between, or don't have kids. Everybody in that room is just you can tell, almost everybody's so family oriented. And I think that that's a really cool thing that could happen with a young president, is he could have those little moments, those, Steph Curry with his daughter at mm-hmm. on his lap in a press conference. Hey, that blew up the internet the next day.
Right.
Everyone saw her and just like, whoa, who does that? Well, he did. Why not have a president that does that?
Right. Well, with that, David, we are out of time. I want to thank you for being on. We may have to do a part 2, because you and I could keep talking, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But thank you for coming on, and we'll have this up on YouTube soon. So check it out.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and great job this year.
Thank you.